Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery, where we bring to you stories and journeys that have really been traveled and that have truly been experienced so that you can glean from it what you need or what will serve you, and you get to leave the rest behind. So today, my guest is super special to me. We belong to some of the same spaces, and there's just a transformative feeling that I always get being in her space with her, just as a friend, as a colleague, and just as somebody that shares some of the spaces with her. Her name is Jennifer Lyall. And I want to just welcome her to come in and just introduce herself before we get started with any conversation. Hi,
Oh,
Jennifer.
hi, Trisha. So lovely to connect. And thank you so much for tuning in and listening today. I'm an intuitive business mentor and chief energy optimizer. I am all about good energy. I help amazing entrepreneurs with believing in themselves, getting clear on what their big vision is, and understanding their potential for bringing it to life. And it's all built on a foundation of good energy. That's what creates the happiness, the deep level of self-awareness, productivity, love, more joy in our worlds.
It is so amazing. And again, I love watching you in your element, right? Even if that's just, sharing with us, a thought or a vision or an intention that you personally have in your day, or something that comes up. Like I really enjoy just having that opportunity to just kind of go, oh, what has Jennifer got for me today?
Yeah.
So, but with that, something that I know, something that and something that my listeners know is that we all don't just arrive right in this place that is, we're successful and good at what we do. Most of us, myself included, have been on some sort of a recovery journey, even, even if it's a life recovery journey, even if it's, an emotional healing type of journey, or if it's, deeper than that, and we have to remove chemical substances or change our relationship with food or our credit card, or our desire to be a people pleaser, to detrimental levels, right? Like we've all been on some sort of a life recovery journey, and so if you wouldn't mind, right, to your level of comfort, of course, like where were you when you realized like, I need to, like what was going on in your life, and you're like, okay, I got to find something, right? Like I got to find something to help this be different.
Yeah. So I was at a place, I'd started my business. I'd been in business for a couple of years. My kids were really young. I had first started my business as Live Healthy with the intention of inspiring people to be proactive about their wellness. So this is back in 2008. At that time, wellness conversations was just building momentum. I started with a video podcast. So this is when podcasting was at its infancy. And my intention was I just wanted to have commercials in my podcast and work part time in my business while my kids were in school. But I was fortunate in that I had a friend who had a successful podcast already in the tech space, and he was already generating like $1,500 an episode for ads. And it's like, this is really easy. I'll lend you my all my stuff, all my equipment. I'll connect you with my naturopath because he wants to create a podcast too. And he gave me everything I needed to get started. But the problem was is that even though I had this passion for wellness, I didn't believe in myself. So I found it really hard to build an audience, with the podcasting being a new concept for people, and also getting advertisers, because I was just a mom who was passionate about wellness. I didn't have any certificates or anything behind me of why me? Why should you invest in me? So I only got a handful of people who advertised. It's like, okay, what else can I do with this? And my mentality was around, well, if it's not working, you better work harder, because that's the sort of environment that I grew up in. My parents, they worked from 7 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night at their own business. So you work really hard to make money. So after the kids would go to bed, I'd stay up for hours trying to build backlinks and get my podcast known out there to generate more followers. And it's like, I need more people watching in order for people to say yes to advertise. And it was just exhausting. So it's like, all right, what else can I do? So let's look at corporate wellness, because I had a background in event planning. And then this also still focused on the whole idea of wellness. And 2008, I don't know if you remember what was going on in the economy at that time. I was going door knocking, and there were for lease, for sale signs. There were no receptionists in most places because they let the receptionists go. So again, I got a handful of people to work with me. And it's just like, I'm so smart. Like, I have a Bachelor of Degrees of Commerce with honors. I have a background in marketing and event planning and project management. Like, why is this so hard? And I remember working with a coach, and I said to her, I just want 2 minutes to breathe. And she said, well, take those 2 minutes to breathe. But I didn't value myself enough to give myself those 2 minutes to breathe. And that was like a real crux moment for me.
Wow. So that resonates for me in a lot of areas, because you talked about how you were raised, right? Like, this is what you do, like you work hard, and and this is what you do. And for me, my conditioning, my upbringing, as a female, was that, you don't talk about anything negative that's going on behind closed doors, and you always put on your best face, when you walk out, going forward, like you always, you have to be, perfect. But you also, right, I was also led by a subservient housewife. And so, you have, it's that, be that super mom. And so, that people pleasing, that codependency, that perfectionism all really sunk in. And it was crazy. So, people pleasing, and anybody that caught on to that little pause, like we needed to take a little pause for a minute. Anyway, so for me, that people pleasing codependency really set in. And as a teenage mom, right? Like, I've been a parent since I was 17 years old, and we raised 5 children, and just really, being in that space, right? Like, everything had to happen like a well-oiled machine. But what happened was, I didn't ever leave space for me.
Mm.
I never left space for me to heal from any of my traumas. I didn't leave any space for me to heal or to grow, emotionally. And so I felt trapped inside of me. And so, I didn't know how to stop and breathe. And so instead, for me, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners, right, like, we get into that emotional space, and where it starts to bubble up and it starts to surface. So we reach for whatever it is we're going to reach for, whether it's, the bucket of Ben and Jerry's, or, the 12 pack of beer, or, whatever it is, that's something, like, we're reaching for something to numb out. For me, it started with, alcohol, but it also started with my relationship with food, right? Like, there was a whole lot of control mechanisms in there.
Mm.
And it would be, like, that restricting. So, I get, like, not giving ourselves, we don't live for ourselves first, right? And we don't leave that space, for breathing, for true life balance, right? Like, it's this hyper focus on anyway. So, so when you get to that space, or when you got to that space, and you're like, I won't even take 2 minutes to breathe. How did you go from that to, I need to take time for me to grow, change, shift, morph as a being, so that I have that level, like, what was the next step for you when you realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm not even, taking 2 minutes for myself.
It actually took me quite some time to realize that I wouldn't give myself permission to do that, because the idea of working, hard work, being what was modeled to me, and chaos being the norm. Like that was my sort of emotional and energetic set point of chaos. You needed to be in chaos. That was normal. And then when you did have time to settle down and to relax, like that just was more uncomfortable for me. So I think that was part of my avoidance of it.
Mm-hmm.
So not only the worthiness of it, but the avoidance of it, because having that space felt uncomfortable because I never knew what to do with that space. And I came to a point where I was so unhappy. And I remember having this moment where I sat on my couch. It was March of 2010, and it was like 6 a.m. The house was quiet, pitch black outside. And I just remember sitting on my couch saying, I give myself permission to figure out what makes my heart sing. And then it was within that that I started to see some different synchronistic events. Synchronicities were starting to weave together. And I slowly started to create a morning practice. I learned a few months later about crystals and about meditation. I actually saw this woman who offered a soul reading because I was trying to figure out what made my heart sing. And she stood up at this networking event saying, well, I'll do a soul reading for anybody who can help me with something. And she wanted to learn about podcasting. So I was like, good, let's connect. It's like, I'm sure that'll help me figure out what makes my heart sing. So I had a transformative conversation with her, and that just opened up this spiritual wonderland. And I started to follow the fun and what felt good.
I love what makes my heart sing, right? Like, I want to find out what makes my heart sing. And hey, Augie's contributing over here. It's truly important that we know what brings us joy. If I was to translate that into work that I prompt my clients to be like, what are you passionate about? How do you want to see yourself experiencing living? Like, how do you want to see it? What lens do you want to be seeing this world through? Because if the way you see it now, or you're experiencing it now, isn't making your heart sing, it feels heavy, it feels weighed down, right? And I also love that you said, like, starting that morning routine, like that and for me, it's get up every morning and start the day with an intention. And a lot of people, when they hear me say that, think I mean like make the to-do list and I intend to start here and finish there, and here's all the things that I'm going to do in between. That's not it. It's, how do I want to experience my day? How do I want to see myself experiencing my day? And that's when we get up, that's our opportunity to choose, right? Mind, body, spirit. We get to choose how we experience anything and everything that goes on, even when it's getting blindsided by something that we didn't know was going to happen, or that is unpreferred. And so everything you're saying is like, wow, I'm learning, right? Because we push it away, right? Like all that chaos. Yeah, that was your distractor of saying, you know what? If I sit still too much, then I'm left alone with the quietness of my mind, and it's uncomfortable and scary or mean or whatever. Yep. Whenever I'm alone, I got to keep it noisy so I don't have to hear it. And I love that, like for you found a way to start learning how to sit in and move through that discomfort.
I embraced it kicking and screaming, because I remember I discovered this process called automatic writing, and some people call it just streams of consciousness, where you're just writing in your journal and things flow through, especially as you're in that sleepy state first thing in the morning, where your conscious mind is less of a filter and it's more of your true self, your heart and your soul that's speaking. And some of the messages that would come through were like, oh, okay, so you need to create an hour for your practice. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, I'm a busy mom. Like, how on earth am I going to do an hour for my practice? Like, universe, don't you know I'm busy down here? Like, what's going on? And it took me a long time to realize that that hour was for me, and that that was to help me get really clear on who I was going to be for the day. How was I going to create me, and like start with the deprogramming and deconditioning of my autopilot. I needed that much time in order to stop. And a big part of my routine has evolved into this process of checking my inner battery in the morning and throughout my day, to just check in and say, how am I right now? What's going on? Is my inner battery full? Is it depleted? What do I need right now in order to show up as the best me as I go and have this conversation for this podcast? Go and have a conversation for joint venture partnership. Go in and have a conversation with a potential client. Go to sit and write this email. Like, who am I being before I take action? Am I taking, bringing in all the stories and thoughts of something that happened yesterday, or we're going through a renovation, and things don't always come together fluidly, and an hour ago I'm on a conversation, on a call and conversation, and then my husband comes down, and like, you can hear me talking coming down the stairs, like, I'm not available right now, like, you can hear I'm in conversation, and it's like, and
Yeah.
just letting it go, taking a pause, boost my inner battery before I show up for you, because I don't want to bring any of those stories into the next thing that I do. I don't want to energetically vomit on somebody else. And that's what we do when we're unaware of who we're being and how we're moving through our day.
Or when we're just simply knee-jerk and reactive. And I love that organically you brought in one of the biggest pieces of the work we do early on, and that is cultivating the art of pause.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, then you can become responsive in all things that you do, and stay and leave all of the knee-jerk impulsive reactivity, right? Like, instead of turning and snapping, like, can't you see I'm having a conversation? Or you can hear me, like, snapping, and versus just taking a deep breath and looking and just not acknowledging, right? Like, tunnel vision. And I remember, when I was early in my journey, I still had one at home and one that was periodically at home. And, they were still really accustomed to just busting in, right? Like, because when, when I wasn't, working, or, I worked, I was in real estate and mortgage and insurance and stuff like that for like 14 and a half years. But I always did that kind of, on the side, as just kind of a secondary thing. But, they were still accustomed to just barging in. And so I learned to pause, not necessarily turn and face, but, pause and ask that open-ended question, like, maybe not in these words, but are you on fire? Do you need my immediate attention, or can it wait until I finish this paragraph, this sentence, this whatever, right? This phone call, right? Like, and if it was urgent, be like, great, give me 2 seconds. I need to, I want to give you my I always would say, like, I want to give you my undivided attention, right? Like, I need to finish this first. And so in a lot of those places, like, we're able to create a pause so that we can even, gather ourselves, but also, like, remember where we were. And that allows us to live for ourselves first, without feeling guilty, without feeling selfish, punished, or even restricted, because we're honoring that space. Like, I want to hear you. Give me 1 minute. I'll meet you in the kitchen. I want to hear you. Can I finish this? That kind of thing. Like, can you give me 10? And then you have that time to give attention to yourself, but also get into the right headspace to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just important. Just as an example, right? Like, so I love that you brought in the art of pause, there. So, so I see that healing journey as, that you went on, and that you were exploring. And at what point did you get to a space of, wow, I've found my rhythm. This is what's included in the way that, how this is what's included in what serves me, so that I experience living the way that I desire. And what does that look like? Like, if there was hypothetical, little check boxes of things that you make sure you have in your toolkit every day, what would that toolkit look like?
So the process of checking your inner battery for me encompasses checking in to see what tool I want to pull out of my toolkit. So my morning begins with, before I get out of bed, just a little prayer that I'll say of just really honoring me, honoring my purpose and what I'm here to do. And so I do that before I get out of bed. And then I make my tea. That's part of my own morning ceremony, get a glass of water. And then I go to my sacred space and I'll start with some creativity. And then I'll check my inner battery. How am I feeling? Yeah, how did I sleep last night? What kind of awarenesses do I have about what's going on in my body? How am I feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? What's coming up for me? Am I feeling blah? Am I feeling on fire? Am I tired and just foggy, or am I like brilliant, alert, and there's like all these ideas that are already flowing through me, about flowing to me and through me, and that really want to be expressed? And then based on what that reaction is, then what my numbers are on a scale of 1 to 10, that'll help guide me as to what I'll do next. If it's an energy clearing, if it's a meditation, walking barefoot on the ground and feeling grounded. I usually do all those things at some point during the day, but it just will depend on if I'm going to do it right then and there, for how much extra boosting I need in that moment. I track how much water I drink, because that's a big thing for me. I also will do different types of meditation. I might work with crystals. Some mornings I pull a card. It really varies based on what I've got going on that day, or just what I've got going on in my life at that period of time.
Wow.
So it's flexible. And then there's not just the morning. I used to just check my inner battery in the morning, and that would be insightful for what was going on at the beginning of the day. And then I started to check it at the end of the day, so I would understand how I was bookending the day. But then things could still show up in the midday and send me sideways. So now I check my inner battery throughout the day. And that's been the game changer, because that's provided the pattern interrupt to understanding the thinking that might be going on that's taking me off course, the choices that I'm making for various things. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you identified, like, I started it here and then I added this. And then I realized that it really needed to be a periodic thing, because, in my world, right, in those higher severity mental health, depressive states, panic and anxiety, but also in a recovery journey from, again, whatever it is, like, alcohol, illicit substance, food, a relationship with food, right? Like, we have, what I refer to as our, we set our day up with an intention, but we have our core non-physical feeling check-in, but we also have our night hygiene, and the night hygiene and the core non-physical feeling check-in, right? Like, they're interchangeable and they're universal, but the core non-physical feeling check-in, and in case I'm not saying that slow enough, it's core non-physical. People are like, what? Anyway, it's right here, right now, in this moment. I feel, right, irritated, agitated, frustrated, annoyed, anxious, bothered, or, maybe I feel elated, inspired, intrigued. Anyway, right? Like, it's that learning how to articulate how you feel, because the word fine is the most ambiguous answer you could ever give. Totally different topic, a different conversation for a different day. But so we ask ourselves, like, right here, right now, in this moment, how do I feel? And then we ask what's driving that feeling in this moment, right? How much of it is about me or coming from inside me, and how much of it is about something outside of me, right?
Mhm.
Again, that external locus of control can do a lot to derail us. And so we start to look at, how can I improve this in this moment going forward? Or what can I do to capitalize on that and gain momentum going forward? Because the next question is, that we may ask ourselves is what isn't working well for me and why, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
the opportunity to
hygiene
catch
is
those
what,
patterns.
like when we do the night hygiene, I always tell people, you've got to start with the good stuff. Everybody wants to talk about, like, you get to the end of your day. So if you're not doing your core non-physical and you're in a great mood, you get to work and somebody spills their coffee on your project that you have on your desk or whatever, like that starts a downward spiral of stressors, and it gets attached. And like we go through these things, and if we don't know how to close it up, if we don't know how to close up one stressor before moving forward, right, and do it cognitively rapidly, then we can kind of get stuck. But anyway, so when we are doing our night hygiene, what went well today, why, right? Like, how can I capitalize on that, right? Like going forward. But what didn't work so well, right? And then we start pulling in things from all the things that are working great. And then the things that didn't work well, like we want to look at that. What's the lesson I can learn? We maybe put it on a metaphoric shelf and trash the rest. Get rid of it, because there's 2 days in life in which we can accomplish nothing. And what is that? Yesterday and tomorrow. Like, we can't accomplish anything in those days, only today. Anyway, but so I love that is how where you shifted and moved to. Now, is that how you generally in today, right? Because we started in 2008, went to 2010, and kind of shift into, so present day, like, is that still holding true to you? Is that still serving you? Or did you have to take it to even more levels?
Doing that extra discipline of checking in throughout the day, that was the added level. And I I was in a mastermind for 2 years where I learned about what was going on in my head and started to defragment the hard drive in my head. And that made a massive shift in being in integrity with my word and getting really clear on what my intentions were and what I wanted to create. So it has been a fine tuning and up leveling evolution. And I'm on a mission to teach 1 million people how to check their inner battery as often as they check their phone battery, so that they can have more happiness, more peace of mind, more productivity, boost their intuition. It's a powerful, simple tool that transforms your world. So
I love the specificity of that, right? And so much of it, right, like resonates for me. And of course, the work that we do is different but similar and very the same,
yeah,
right? Like, but I love that there's that specific place where it's just like, this is what we're gonna, this is where we're gonna hold on to and focus, because that's gonna heal so many people's lives. That's going to give them that forward moving trajectory. And again, it's what I love about being in your space, is that it's so purpose driven, and it is so useful, and it is so what's applicable, right? Like, it's not so, and I don't mean to say it this way, right? But it mainstream USA lingo. It's not so woohoo that it's not usable for everybody. So, when we talk about, connecting on a spiritual level, mind, body, spirit, I love that you talk about walking around barefoot, because generally speaking, on any given day, with the exception of right now, for some reason or other, I was just thinking about this. I actually have shoes on right now, but I would say 98% of the time, I don't have shoes on my feet, right? Like, I love that. And if you walk through my house, it's either hand scraped hardwood or it is raw, natural stone with cement as the grout, right? Like throughout my house. Or there's just different textures to it, and it's all an element that comes from the earth. And
yeah,
I believe in that. If we don't bring that from the outside in, right? Like, our homes they don't have all the things that they need. But so I love the spiritual element to that, but the practicality of it, and how it can just be so life changing. And the fact that you support, like, we get to choose. We get to choose. We need to quit ignoring ourselves and pushing it off and just saying, if I make this next $10, if I make this next $1,000, if I could just get 25 new people to come work with me, then I'd have the confidence. Build the confidence first, build the self-worth first, be right and good for you. Like, be able to look in the mirror and go, I love living my life all day, every day, even on the hard days. When you can do that, then you can be of service.
Follow the joy, I like to say. Follow the joy.
I love that. Follow the joy. And I think, there were so many little areas that I heard that we could go off into and talk about specific actual inner work. But I truly love and value you coming in here as I shared with you, before we hit record, and as I've shared with my listeners a few times in the last few episodes, like, we're shifting back into this space where it's like, we're really going to be talking about what we're really here to talk about. And that is like a real view of recovery. So that would be wonderful. We could come back in and talk about some of these little subcategories, but have them be very purposeful and specific. But you know what? So many people got to hear, like, wow, like, everybody needs a healing journey at some point, and it's okay to stop and breathe for 2 minutes.
Yep, those 2 minutes are precious. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Jennifer, I'm going to be dropping all of your contact information in the show notes below, but just because I want to make sure that, maybe somebody's listening in and they're not doing the visual, they can't see us, and they're just listening to the audio. Maybe I don't know, they're on the phone. What would be the best, easiest one place that somebody could reach you?
That'd be through my website, jlyall.com. And that would take me then to my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, my LinkedIn, and then you can also learn about how to check your inner battery if that speaks to you.
That's awesome. I love that. So it's J Lyle?
Yep,
Yeah.
jlyall.com.
Perfect. And of course, again, that's going to be in the show notes or the description below, depending upon, again, where you're listening or watching. Again, thank you so much. And if you had one parting thing, one gift that you wanted to, that one thing that you would say, just do this today, what would that be?
Follow the joy. Yeah, whatever little thing it is that makes you feel better, do more of it in your day, even if it's as simple as picking the specialty and taking an extra pause while you're about to drink your tea to sniff the tea and really take it in, or taking a break at lunchtime to go outside and feel the sunshine on your skin, taking an extra moment to hug a little bit deeper, a little bit, more heart to heart, pet your cat a little bit more, dance to your favorite song, whatever it is that brings you joy. Just give yourself permission to follow that joy and then see what gets inspired next for you, because so much goodness is waiting for you.
Amen to that. If I give some of y'all that I know really well that are probably listening, like, I know you're saying, nothing brings me joy. I don't know anything that brings me joy. I guarantee you, like, if you take the time to be present enough as you're going through your day, you will find one thing that brings a smile to your face. But if you're not present, if you're not aware of your surroundings, you'll miss it. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your heart, your mind, and your soul open, and it will come. Again, Jennifer, thank you so, so much. And for everybody here and listening, thank you for being here and for being willing to take this journey with us. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.